I just finished watching Exandria Unlimited Calamity. For those not in the know, it's a Dungeons & Dragons miniseries done by the geniuses at Critical Role. What was so special about this series was that it managed to empty my tear ducts at an alarming rate. But it also showed such amazing character arcs that by the finale left me thinking about each of the characters and how even at the end of this story, where many perished, characters were still learning about themselves to the bitter end. And this got me thinking about my own struggles with knowing who I am and my individuality, and this then led me to thinking about some of my favourite video game characters who also struggled with this and how they actually helped me to realise that it's okay to be a bit lost. Fair warning to everyone here, there may be some minor spoilers in this video, but I will try to keep them to a minimum. This is also going to be a little bit more emotional, so expect sad music, and me talking a little more somberly and slowly. When I was around the age of 11 or 12 years old, I went on holiday to go and see some family. As a child, I grew up with video games and was somewhat of an indoorsy kind of boy because of this. On one of the days while on holiday, my parents allowed me to browse a local game store, which honestly was a pretty big mistake on their part. So I looked through all of the games and was fairly unenthusiastic about them all, until my eyes fell on Final Fantasy VII. I had watched my cousin play this game some time before this, and he was the coolest person in the world to me at the time, and obviously I wanted to be cool, so with some convincing and with possibly the promise that I would actually go outside and feel the sun on my face every so often, it was mine. Now, RPGs and story-based games are my bread and butter. The thing about these types of video games is that they do what films and TV can't. They put you in the control of someone living an extraordinary life and attempt to get you to feel what they feel. One of the key elements in RPGs in particular is a party, as in like a party of characters. You'll usually stumble upon them as you go about your journey and build relationships with them as you trudge on to your end goal. Inevitably, you can usually only have a few people active though, so some people may get left out more than others. These characters usually fit into the regular archetypes that we find in TV and films. However, I thought I'd help you with some visual aids to just remind you of some of these very well-known archetypes, just by using a few characters from video games. But what's important isn't these very well known and real archetypes, it's the stories behind them. For them to be a great character, they need to stand out as individuals, and now that half of my video has stopped being an introduction, it's the people struggling with individuality that I really want to highlight today. The ones who are just trying to figure out who the hell they really are. If you haven't played Deltarune or Undertale, you might not know that these games are a little different to most in the genre and go out of their way to break many conventions of what you've come to expect from RPGs. For example, starting the game for the first time, we're given a character selection screen and asked a few questions about ourselves, and all I'm going to say is trust nothing. The game's protagonist isn't who you might want them to be, but this isn't actually who I've decided to talk about. So far, there are only 2 chapters out of a total of 7 that have been released, so the full vision of this story is yet to be realised, but the general theme, as described by Rousey, is that of hopes and dreams and light and dark. However, it's actually not always that simple in this game, and there are actually a lot of grey areas, but I digress. This brings us to our worlds though, and you will be shocked to hear that there is a light world and a dark world, both living separately and keeping each other balanced, whatever that means. And supposedly if they stop living in harmony, then a terrible calamity will occur, the sky will run black with terror, and the land will crack with fear, yada yada. Probably nothing to worry about at all. Anyway, in the light world, you've got stuff going on like your school life, and being bullied, and your dad trying to get back with your mum. But in the dark world, we have Lancer. Lancer is set on destroying your party, as you are the prophesized heroes who have come to restore balance or something. Again, probably not super important. But in their way is Lancer, the club-faced, bicycle-riding monster who has been sent by the king, his father, to stop you. But the thing about Lancer is he's actually not very good at this whole bad guy thing. You fight him soon after arriving in the dark world, but after that he just kind of follows you around. He enjoys to do things like standing around, making you walk through mazes. Or throwing enemies at you who just so happen to specialise in support. Later on, Lancer misinterprets a threat from one of your party members as helped to improve his evil laugh. And when we come back to him after encountering a crowned checker piece with legs, that same party member takes the credit for the defeat despite not really doing anything helpful at all. So it only made sense that reluctant party member and enthusiastic bully Susie decides to join Lancer in being a bad guy. It's a classic tale of 2 misunderstood people coming together to take on the world themselves.
Shit just got real.
Your now smaller party encounters Susie and Lancer numerous times in their journey as they begin to make a plan to destroy you and to work on getting a scarier laugh. Gradually, the two have more and more fun with each other, and they both sort of realise how fun this all is doing this together, and how great it is to have friends, and eventually realising that their journey to become more badass can actually be done without hurting people, and they can make friends after all, and then they come back to join you, and isn't this all just really adorable? Lancer never really had any friends, and everyone in the kingdom would tolerate him because of his status, and due to no one really caring to get to know him, he would just use the subjects of the castle. It wasn't until Susie, who also believed she'd never make friends, decided to join Lancer in being a bad guy, that they began to learn things about themselves through getting to know each other. They become aware that they were actually both just misunderstood, and bonding over that allowed them to realise that they can open up to people, and that they are actually kind-hearted and have a lot to give, and that they don't have to live their life the way they believed they had to. And all the while, our main character seems to just go along with everything, and despite some bullying from Susie early on, overall actually seems to be doing fairly okay. Whenever people talk about Final Fantasy games, the most common games you'll hear brought up are probably 7 and 10, but less spoken about is the high fantasy masterpiece Final Fantasy IX, containing knights, monkey-tailed boys, princesses, flying airships, and this. Those who have played through it know that this is one of the best RPG experiences out there. As fits with the story, each location feels like it's completely separate from all the others, with the locals having unique styles, layouts varying from a village built outside of a tree to a cobblestone city where the nobles live down on the waterfront and the poor live above it in the slums. But what really shines are the main characters, each having their own goal they're passionate to pursue, unlike in other RPGs where sometimes it feels like characters are really just along for the ride. For example, Steiner, who is essentially the principal skinner of knights, has sworn to protect the Princess of Alexandria no matter the cost. While Princess Garnet, who's recently noticed some pretty significant changes in her mother, seeks to escape the castle, in order to speak to her uncle in hopes that he'll help stop her mother's new militaristic mindset and protect the kingdom. And Zidane, our lead protagonist and resident ladies man, who when we meet him is a sky pirate ready for adventure on his way to kidnap the princess. And there's clearly more to his story, but you should play the game, and none of these people are who I'm here to talk about. The second character we control is a small, clumsy, no-faced and yellow-eyed boy. This is Vivi, and he's on his way to catch the show that everyone's talking about inside the palace walls, I Want to Be Your Canary. However, we quickly find out that one thing that Vivi lacks is luck. Upon handing over his ticket, he finds out that he's been sold a fake, and sadly, this really does set up very well just how tough life is going to be for our young wizard. A little further into the game, when Vivi has joined Zidane, Steiner and Princess Garnet after a series of events, they arrive at the village of Dali. Dali is a quaint little farm village found on the other side of an ice cavern. However, it seems that the village is now in the cargo transportation business. And on arrival, it's clear that something is not quite right, as some of the village children seem to have taken a particular interest in our faceless boy, and he soon goes missing. Zidane and Garnet go on the lookout for him and make an incredibly strange discovery. Understandably, this is really troubling for Vivi, and looking back up until this point, we didn't see anyone that looks like Vivi in Alexandria. Imagine that kind of loneliness, feeling like you're literally the only one who looks like you, until you stumble upon these seemingly lifeless, mute replications on an assembly line like toys, or as we discover when they reach the cargo ship, slaves. To Vivi, this is like meeting your family for the first time, and it's actually really hard to watch as you struggle to try and get any form of communication or even emotion out of them. Until this. Strangely, these other black mages try to protect Vivi, and just as this breakthrough happens, this violent, familiar-looking assailant destroys them in this heartbreaking scene. This family that Vivi has just found is now lost, leaving him with all of his questions unanswered, and for the first time, Vivi is furious. This is just the beginning of Vivi's journey to self-discovery. I love his story because it shows that life is what you make it, and you aren't what you look like or who people say you are. You are your actions. Vivi has a long road ahead of him in his journey to self-acceptance, and it's this that makes his story one of the best told in any Final Fantasy. I used to be incredibly shy when I was a kid, and even into my early 20s. I lacked confidence and was always afraid as coming off as sounding stupid, so I would usually just keep quiet. I always dreamed that I would do something amazing though, something that would get people to notice me and appreciate who I am, and thanks to games, I kind of believed that I could as well. These games are more than just the stories that they tell, they're inspirational lessons that you are more than where you came from, you're more than what you are on the outside, and that if you try, you can achieve amazing things, even if that amazing thing is simply finding your voice around the right people.